A nutrition concept that has been receiving increasingly more attention lately is fermentation. It's an idea that a lot of people don't seem to have even a general understanding of, and some seem to have written it off as another of the many buzzwords in the nutrition world. But it is legitimate, and it deserves at least one video to itself. So what is fermentation? It is a process in which a microorganism or a combination of microorganisms like bacteria or fungi are added to a food for a certain length of time to allow them to break down and consume carbohydrates, sugars, and starches into simpler compounds, acids like lactic or acetic, alcohols, and with metabolic byproducts including short-chain fatty acids. The fermentation process breaks down certain things like lactose and anti-nutrients, notably phytates and lectins. This improves the digestibility of foods, making the whole process a bit smoother, especially for those with IBS, and it increases the bioavailability of several nutrients. Fermentation creates an environment where beneficial bacteria, probiotics, can thrive. When the fermented food is consumed, these healthy bacteria crowd out harmful bacteria by competing for resources, and strengthen the gut's barrier, effectively improving immune health, reducing virus and infection risks. Fermented foods are also shown to be associated with a reduced risk of heart disease, boost metabolism, and aid in regulating satiety hormones, and potentially improve mental health by being linked to reduced symptoms of anxiety and depression, and probably much more. Research surrounding fermented foods is only getting more common and complex. The last thing to mention is bacteria's production of vitamin K2 as another metabolic byproduct, in a similar way to how bacteria in ruminant animals produces vitamin B12. Vitamin K2 activates the hormone osteocalcin, which binds calcium to bones, and it aids heart health by preventing calcium buildup in blood vessels, thus reducing stiffness. And obviously it has other roles, but it's mainly calcium's manager. Now, fermented foods may cause some digestive discomforts in some people, especially when overconsumed. You're dumping a lot of bacteria in your gut, but for the most part, fermentation really only does good. So much so that you could refer to them as the base foods plus. So let's take a look at some of the biggest and best fermented foods. First up is a familiar drink that could just be referred to as milk plus, called kefir, a very probiotic-rich milk-based drink that resembles a thinner yogurt. It's made by fermenting milk with kefir grains, which are actually not grains at all. They're live, gelatinous bacteria and yeast. You mix these two ingredients, let it sit at room temperature for about a day, and then strain the grains out. As a result, when compared to milk nutritionally, kefir has less calories, far less lactose, and more bioavailable nutrients all across the board. Protein, vitamins, and minerals, specifically calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, and dairy's various B vitamins. Because of these, kefir is a strong contender for being considered the best food for prevention of osteoporosis. And of course, there's the probiotic effect. Kefir consistently has on average the strongest probiotic of the 10 foods in this video and the most powerful among dairy foods as well. This is because kefir has a significantly more complex array of probiotic strains. While Greek yogurt usually offers around 5, kefir can have upwards of 50 to 60. This results in more powerful anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial effects and pretty much everything else that I listed about a minute ago. To me, kefir is the king of fermented foods without really even that much of a debate. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and knock out another popular fermented drink. It's basically tea plus kombucha. It's made by mixing sweetened tea, usually black, green, white, or oolong teas with a live culture and leaving it to sit for a few weeks. I would describe it as a fizzy, tangy, and acidic tasting drink. Unlike other fermented drinks, kombucha is a very low-calorie way to include some probiotics in your day-to-day life. The bacteria consumes most of the sugar added and is converted to various organic acids. And these acids are shown to help improve digestion, reduce inflammation, enhance antimicrobial activity, and promote detoxification. So it's good for the heart, gut, and liver. As for its actual probiotic effect, it's stronger than some but weaker than others. But contrary to popular belief, as you'll see throughout this video, probiotics are not the only relevant benefit of fermentation. And like the pre-fermented teas themselves, there's not that much to speak of in terms of nutrients. They'll be rich in whatever phenolic compounds were there prior. It's far from the most overwhelming food on this list, but it might just be the most underutilized relative to its ease of inclusion. So if you haven't already, go give a bottle of kombucha a try. Now, for one of the most popular fermented foods, basically cabbage plus, we have sauerkraut. And it is pretty much just shredded cabbage and salt fermented by lactic acid bacteria. The mixture is massaged for about 10 minutes, releasing the liquid in the cabbage. Then it's left to sit and ferment for at least a week, though often much longer. After fermentation, sauerkraut has a much more bioavailable content of vitamin C, iron, and several B vitamins, as well as, of course, a relevant vitamin K2 content. Among popular fermented foods, sauerkraut is especially helpful for protecting intestinal cells and helping to avoid bowel issues. And again, good gut health translates to everything else, like the brain, heart, and bones due to better absorption and protection. Unlike most fermented foods in this video, actual solid foods that we haven't gotten to yet, sauerkraut gives you a strong probiotic effect at a fraction of the calories and in a form that is more of a topping than a base. So it's easy to include in salads, sandwiches, wraps, rice, and various breakfast dishes. And a somewhat similar idea for a fermented food is kimchi, a staple Korean dish defined by its strong seasoning and fermentation. Vegetables, most commonly Napa cabbage and daikon, are tossed in chili powder and other spices and often fermented seafood or seafood paste or sauce. This combination is then left to ferment in lactic acid bacteria for a few days. Post-fermentation, it'll have major increases in nutrient bioavailability in all of iron, calcium, potassium, vitamin C, vitamin K, provitamin A carotenoids, and B vitamins. Kimchi has an even more powerful probiotic effect than sauerkraut due to the greater variety of ingredients, providing a more diverse environment for bacteria to feed. This results in even stronger immune, anti-inflammatory, and anti-infection benefits. Plus, there's the benefits of capsaicin from the traditionally included peppers regarding metabolism, inflammation, and cancer. Kimchi is another low-calorie probiotic food, though unlike sauerkraut, it's often served more as its own dish, but it's a very worthy inclusion to your diet if you so choose. Next, a fermented soy food that you should be familiar with at this point, tempeh. Soybeans plus in the form of a cake of sorts. It is cooked soybeans fermented with a rhizopus mold culture that is left alone for a day or two at a consistently warm temperature. The fermentation increases the bioavailability of several nutrients by either breaking them down into simpler forms or breaking down anti-nutrients like phytic acid that inhibit their absorption. This results in tempeh being a better source than plain soybeans of protein, fiber, iron, calcium, magnesium, zinc, and soy's signature isoflavin compounds, which are shown to improve heart health, bone health, and several other measures. Unlike many other foods on this list, tempeh is actually at its best as the crux of the meal, the fill-in for meat or something like tofu. In fact, in a lot of ways, there's an argument to be made that tempeh is tofu plus too. But that's okay if you're trying to embrace a more plant-based diet, then the more viable protein options, the better. So soy is a very popular choice for fermentation. Another popular food that fits is miso, which is more of a paste or topping than a base food. It's made by fermenting soybeans with the koji mold, which is a strain of fungi breaking down a grain like barley or rice. It's steamed, mashed, and left to ferment for potentially a very long time, as little as a few months but up to multiple years. Miso is richer in similar nutrients as tempeh due to the breaking down of phytic acid. It is more bioavailable post-fermentation when it comes to protein, B vitamins, minerals like iron, calcium, and zinc, and again, soy's isoflavin compounds. Miso is, however, considered to have a much more potent probiotic effect than tempeh. This is largely owed to the lack of high heat cooking, preserving more of the beneficial bacteria. And miso's probiotics have particular benefits toward reducing blood pressure, cancer risk, and digestive problems like IBD, inflammatory bowel disease. And again, the more healthy gut bacteria, the better the immune system and pretty much everything else. As for miso culinarily, it's pretty versatile. Mix it into soups, noodles, or dressings, or use it as a marinade for most meats, vegetables, or stir-fry. And rounding out a fermented soy trio is natto, possibly an even more fitting choice for the title of soybean plus. It's made by soaking and steaming soybeans and then mixing them with that bacteria. Not even going to try to pronounce it. It's fermented in heat for about a day, then left to age in the cold for a bit longer. Once again, due to the breaking down of certain nutrients and anti-nutrients, natto has more bioavailable protein, fiber, B vitamins, iron, calcium, potassium, and isoflavins. And natto is especially naturally vitamin K2 rich, making it great for bone health alongside its improved calcium. And natto usually has an even stronger probiotic effect than miso, as its unique bacteria is resilient against stomach acids and such. Thus, they survive long enough to reach the gut and thrive in it. This makes natto one of the best foods for digestive health, winning the bacterial battle and protecting against toxins and infections. And its unique fermentation produces an enzyme called nattokinase, which aids heart health by improving blood flow. Now, I understand natto might not be for everyone, as it can be quite pungent and sticky, but it will reward those who do eat it. A more unique case in the fermentation world is sourdough bread, basically bread plus. Sourdough is made by fermenting with a live wild yeast rather than more standard yeast. The flour and wild yeast are mixed, then left to ferment for at least 8 hours before being shaped and baked. Unfortunately, the high heat of the cooking kills off a significant amount of the potential probiotics. So sourdough is one of the least powerful probiotics of the foods featured in this video. But while that aspect might seem a bit disappointing, fermentation brings out the best of bread nutritionally, for the same reasons as usual: broken down easier to absorb nutrients and broken down easier to avoid anti-nutrients. This results in much improved protein digestibility, more bioavailable iron, magnesium, zinc, and B vitamins, a lower glycemic index so it's less blood sugar triggering, and a lower gluten content, making it more potentially edible for those with a milder intolerance. Still not for those with celiac though, sorry. And while sourdough may not have as much of a probiotic content, it is rich in resistant starch, a prebiotic that feeds the healthy bacteria that's already in your gut. Ultimately, there's little reason not to ferment bread if you can, especially when it tastes so good. There were a lot of different fermented foods that I could have included in this video. It's hard to choose only 10, but I wanted to give some love to an underappreciated choice, the Lassi. This is a chilled yogurt-based drink that is traditionally fermented with lactic acid bacteria cultures. It is a significantly less powerful probiotic than Kefir, having a far less overall count and strain diversity. It also retains far more lactose than Kefir. The fermentation still helps a lot when it comes to nutrients though, having more bioavailable protein, calcium, and vitamin B12. But what really makes the Lassi stand out to me is the variety with what it can be made with. There are many styles of sweet, salty, and savory Lassis, to the point where you can have one alongside pretty much anything and make it work. The most popular is the mango Lassi. Simply blend mango with yogurt or something similar like buttermilk, and often flavorings like honey, cardamom, mint, lime, saffron, or turmeric. In my opinion, this might just be the most enticing way to include probiotics on this whole list. Though not everything advertised as a Lassi is actually fermented, so if you want that benefit, it doesn't hurt to check. And last up today is one that could be perceived as a stranger choice, but it absolutely counts. It is apple cider vinegar. I can't be the only one who hated this stuff growing up, right? It's simply crushed apples fermented with specific types of bacteria and yeast. These convert sugar into acetic acid, which is the part that is often touted for its health benefits, like management of blood sugar, improving insulin sensitivity, and its antimicrobial properties. And I'm sure you've seen that apple cider vinegar often comes with the mother and wondered what the heck that is. Well, it's a substance made of bacteria, yeast, and enzymes that is naturally formed during the fermentation process. It acts as a probiotic, though not as effective of one as most foods in this video due to the acidity causing less diversity among the bacteria, but also you're just likely to be consuming way less of it. Overall, there's not quite as much to say about apple cider vinegar as others, but it is definitely fermented and almost exclusively a net positive for how little of it is recommended. And that's all I've got to say about fermented foods today, though I doubt it'll be the last time I talk about fermentation as a whole. It is a very unique process and just about one of the only things people can do to actually improve natural foods, increasing nutrient absorption and providing for the gut in a way few other things do. I can only hope that awareness of fermentation continues to grow, as it would likely do a lot of good for a lot of people. Now, if you enjoyed this video, or at the very least learned something, I encourage you to subscribe, as I have more of these on the way. I also encourage you to share it with someone who you think might find it useful or interesting. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments what other topics you think would fit this 10 food style, and remember that all I ask is that you do your own research and advocate for your body. You only get the one.